What could possibly be more important to human well-being than our health? As they say, if you don't have your health, nothing else matters. And here AI has been and is making incredible contributions, not only in form of the Nobel Prize winning protein folding that the researchers of Google DeepMind got, as discussed just recently, but also in really day-to-day things, like, for example, in a primary care, in form of a primary care physician. For example, here what Google did is they took an AI and converted it into a primary care physician, like a doctor you would see on a regular basis. So they called Amy, and it can learn from human data from all the other doctors. But the question was, can it actually be better than that? Can it be creative and improve that? Going back to the previous discussion that we just had on creativity, if AI can learn from our data and become as good as the best doctors, but can it become better than the best doctors if all it has is data? And yes, it actually looks for new combinations, and in these new combinations it can create also new data and then explore this new data, just coming from data, but simulated data. So what they did here is they took one AI that's basically the doctor and one that's the patient, the patient simulator and the critic, and then they let it interact around 12,000 dialogues. So depending on how many patients you see, right, would be like between 10 and 60 years of dialogues of patient and doctor, and then they let it run and see if it improved. And yes, it improved significantly over time, especially in things like diagnostic accuracy. So these are the quantitative things that improved that. Now it became better than the best doctors. But the interesting thing is it also improved on things like empathy, for example, or the patient's confidence in care. So as long as it moved on, you can see the red cycle is going beyond the blue cycle. And that is extremely impressive, because usually we wouldn't associate a robot with somebody who is more empathetic or that you have more confidence in. In health is something extremely delicate. So on the one hand, it's very impressive. On the other hand, yeah, I don't know. It's also not so difficult. I mean, last time you've been at the doctor's office, I don't know how. It's not so difficult. Maybe you had what 6, 7, 8 minutes with the doctor, and then the nurse didn't even get upset with you. Hey, hooray! So it's not. It might not be so. Like if you have a machine that's there for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours and answers all of your questions, and we can create as many primary care physicians, just copy paste different ones. So shouldn't be so surprising either that at the end this technology is more empathetic and we have more confidence in it than our normal doctors. And that's a theme you see through and through in AI research nowadays, that actually they help us. They are sometimes more human than humans, and they help us as well to become better humans. For example, if you go to these mental health fora, this is especially after the pandemics, we were missing therapists for mental health, and people by the thousands, by the masses went to these mental health forums. But that's more a blind helping a one-eyed to walk across the street. Sometimes it didn't go so well. It's helpful, but it wasn't always the best, because people are not trained in being real good therapists. So what they did here is they took an AI that actually works like a spell check, but it doesn't spell check your grammar. It spell checks for emotional intelligence. And then it would make a correction. So you would see something, you want to post something, and before you want to post it, it would say like, oh yes, but I read all the context of the forum and I see what you want to post. Why don't you use this word instead of that word? That might be less offensive to a group here that I detected. And second of all, why don't you start, this is a very good advice, but why don't you start with validating the other person's feelings? And we all know we should do that, right? But we never do. We never take the time to really validate and re-express and create this trust, confidence, and empathy just by re-express. We don't do that. So the machine corrected these kind of very psychological tricks that we all in theory know, but in practice rarely use. And you can see that people that accepted this emotional intelligence spell checker were evaluated by their peers as much more empathetic than the humans only. That means a human and a robot were more human, appeared more human than the human, and the people that used it more, the more you used it, the more higher you got in the expressed empathy score. This is very impressive, and these technologies are now also used not only to help others, but also for yourself. So this is an application by the Mental Health America, actually by a government-funded institution, and they use it for cognitive behavioral therapy. So you're basically talking with an AI in order to go through the therapist steps of cognitive behavioral therapy. And likely, there are many war zones in this world, in developing countries and so forth. And we do not have, and in the foreseeable future, we will not have enough therapists to help people with their traumas, with really traumatic events that they had. And this might be simulated, but it's, according to this research, it is impressively good, and AI can help us to maintain our health, including our mental health.